morning, everyone. Thanks very much for being with us once again on day 3. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the Kirsten Bosch experience last night. You've had your fun. It's back to business now. A very important business as well in this opening session, as you know. Can I remind you also, it's an opportunity to play your part within this session. We'll have a panel discussion in the latter half of this. You know the format now. Find the session on the app. And you simply go in and it says, where are we? Here we go. Go into that and it asks you, submit a question now. So same process, please do, as part of this discussion to come. It is about equine welfare, which in some senses is a rather technical description of the topic. Certainly to outsiders, they would perhaps see it more as how does racing care for its horses? I don't think it's unfair to say after the last 12 months or so, there are many people out there who wonder, does racing care for its horses? So this is a critically important area to discuss. And it is being chaired by someone who needs very little introduction, to be honest, and is synonymous with the internationalization of racing. So I'm going to ask Louis Romanet, Chairman of the International Federation of Horse Racing Authorities, to chair this session and to offer some opening remarks. Louis, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I've been in racing for a few years, a little more than 50 years, and I was lucky to be in South Africa for the 1997 Asian Racing Conference, and I have a great memory of the visit I made, so I'm pleased to be back 23 years later. And I would like to start by thanking all the organizers. I know it's been a big challenge with the coronavirus for Hong Kong Jockey Club, who is doing the secretariat of the Asian Racing Federation, but I want to thank very warmly Winfried. I'm sure he's looking at us, and also Andrew Harding and all the team. And I would like also to thank our hosts, Ken Truter and Susan Rowett, who've been taking so much care of us during our stay. Horse welfare is a topic that has been featured in every meaningful gathering of racing officials throughout the entire world for much of the past decade, with greater emphasis in the past few years. As we say, the pressure is going on. Protecting equine welfare can be defined in many different ways, but in general, it is characterized when horses are treated with dignity, respect, and a minimum standard of care from cradle to grave. A horse will experience good welfare if it is healthy, comfortable, well-nourished, safe, and is not suffering from unpleasant states such as pain, fear, and distress. Good horse welfare requires disease prevention and appropriate veterinary care, shelter, management, and nutrition, a stimulating and safe environment, and humane handling. But why go to these lengths to ensure horse welfare? The answer is quite clear. It is the morally correct thing to do, and secondly, societal norms, which are constantly evolving, now place an even greater expectation that our sport is doing everything within its control to protect the well-being of all horses. Therefore, it is critical that we remain diligent, constantly re-evaluating and justifying the effectiveness of historical approaches toward ensuring equine welfare. Any failure to meet those social standards, whether real or perceived, could have dire consequences on the long-term sustainability and viability of our entire industry. At the most recent assembly of the International Federation of Horse Racing Authorities in October 2019, our majority focus was on horse welfare, with more than half the day centering on this subject through a session organized by Nick Rust, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. The conference keynote address was delivered by Tracy Crouch, a member of the UK's Parliament, UK Sports Minister from 2015 to 2018. Mrs. Crouch, as an elected official, conveyed a message that rang loud and clear for those in attendance, that we must all remember that in many countries, horse racing has a social license to operate. Social license is most commonly defined as an acceptance of industry practices and procedures by the general public. That license is granted in return for the horse racing industry understanding and demonstrating its duty of care for the horse it breeds and races. Mrs. Crouch explained if our sports fail to do so, that license can easily be revoked. 2019 presented many challenges to that underwritten agreement. It is not an unfair statement to say that the future of our industry, in many ways, relies on how we collectively reacted to these tests. As Mrs. Crouch also stated at our conference, this is a turning point for the industry. It is time to embrace the welfare agenda, otherwise a generation of racegoers will be lost and our industry susceptible to decline. Much good has already been done, but there is more to do. Today, an esteemed panel from Australia, Hong Kong, the United States, and South Africa will share what is currently in place, being developed and being implemented in the realm of horse welfare. But before that takes place, what I would like to share with you is what the International Federation of Horse Racing Authorities does to protect the safety of the horse before, during, and after its racing career. In 2010, the Executive Council of the IFHA asked its Horse Welfare Committee to take a leading role in providing advice and guidance on this crucial area of our sport. Their aims have been, first, to promote best practice, harmonization, and information exchange in all matters as they relate to the welfare of the horse. Secondly, to raise awareness among participants and third parties of horse welfare matters and establish permanent contact with welfare organizations. And finally, to work with the other technical committees of the Federation as it relates to equine welfare. The Horse Welfare Committee, led by its chairman, Jamie Steer, who will speak to this audience very shortly, have advanced several white papers titled IFHA Principle of Good Practice, which are available on our website since last year. These documents cover 6 key topics, which you can see on the slide. The emergency euthanasia of horses on a racecourse. As we know all, it's a crucial one. It has to be treated the best way, and the best way is very often very difficult when you have an incident in a Group 1 race in the last straight, like the Breeders' Cup Classic last year or the Prix de l'Opéra on Arc Day. Secondly, monitoring equine injuries and facilities. Activities to minimize injury and other conditions associated with training and racing. Racecourse and veterinary equine emergency care procedures. Aftercare of racehorses. The use of the whip in horse racing. On each of these theme, you will have a detailed paper, which is a recommendation for all the racing authorities to apply. In 2019, the IFHA Executive Council adopted on the recommendation of its Horse Welfare Committee, with support by our Advisory Council on Equine Prohibited Substances and Practices, that the following practices be included as specified prohibited practice in Article C, Paragraph 2 of the International Agreement on Breeding, Racing, and Wagering. It concerns firing, blistering, bloodletting, chemical castration, or immunocastration. In addition, since 2017, a number of IFHA officials I've been working with them alongside the International Forum for the Aftercare of Racehorses, also known as IFAR. This group is an independent forum established to help advocate lifetime care to a new level all around the world, to increase awareness within the international racing community, and to educate the sport, horse world, and the general public on the welfare of thoroughbred racehorses. I commend IFAR and its chair, Di Arbuthnot, for the work they continue to do and for a successful hosting of a fourth forum yesterday here in Cape Town, to which I was able to attend, and where we had a very interesting presentation from Japan, from Korea, from South Africa, and from Australia. And I must say that we have all been quite impressed by the presentation made by the Japanese. When they treat a problem, treat him at the highest possible level. And there is a lot to take and to learn from this presentation. Our panel today will dive into a wide range of welfare matters that can easily be applied in every home, in every one of our home nations, and these case studies should serve as reminders of what can be done and what still needs to be achieved. Discussing this real-life situation at events such as the Asian Racing Conference are vital to ensure our sport is prepared to counter emotional challenges presented by opponents with clear evidence of investment in equine welfare and successful outcomes. But we must also be prepared to challenge attitudes within our sport and see things from a wider perspective. As Mrs. Crouch stated at the IFHA conference last October, you either have informed debate in racing leading to proactive, that's a very important word, we must be proactive, and reasonable change, or have change forced upon you by policymakers distant from the intricate detail of the industry, but reactionary to public opinion. I would stress those remarks and conclude by saying the economic and social livelihood of our sport depends on the industry itself progressing and enacting the highest possible standards of horse welfare. Thank you for your attention.
Louis, thank you very much indeed for that. As Louis mentioned, we're going to look at this from a variety of angles, and we're going to start with a focus on Australia and developments, recent developments there. Jamie Steer has, over his extensive career in racing, worked as a stipendiary steward in Sydney, chief stipendiary steward in Hong Kong, then moving to the United Kingdom as well at the British Horse Racing Authority as chief regulatory officer. He's now back in Australia, in his job at the moment as the Executive General Manager for Integrity Services for Racing Victoria. Jamie, thank you very much for being with us. The recent developments in Australia and Racing Victoria's approach to equine welfare. Thank you.